Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we're going to be talking about a couple of new SEC filings. We've got a Form 5 from Elon showing a multi-billion-dollar donation. We've also got an update from a former short seller of Tesla that is hopping back into that game. Then we've got a couple of product updates and some other items as well. Strong day for the markets today. The Nasdaq was up 2.5%, Tesla up 5.3% to $922.43. Seemed like a lot of this hinged on the Russia and Ukraine situation, some signs of potential de-escalation there. Everyone's kind of got their own thoughts on that, but that seemed to be what the market was reflecting today. President Biden is giving an update on this as I am recording, so I don't have any news from that, but also something to keep an eye on. That will continue to influence the macro this week. Before the market opened today, as we had talked about yesterday, we did also get the producer price index report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and those increases were greater than Bloomberg consensus estimates. So month over month increased 1%, and year over year 9.7%. Forecast collected by Bloomberg had expected a 0.5% month over month and 9.1% year over year, but I don't know when those would have been collected. Obviously the CPI, Consumer Price Index, came in higher than expected. That would have increased expectations here too, and I don't know if that would have been captured in the consensus. Seems like probably not based on the market reaction today, but obviously other stuff going on too. All right, getting into the Tesla news, a lot of the headlines today around a new Form 5 from Tesla, so not the Form 4s that we spent so much time with. The Form 5 is somewhat similar. It's used to disclose a change in ownership, and in this case, Elon reporting a change in ownership on 5,044,000 shares back in November 2021 between the 19th and the 29th. We can see on the form that the transaction code for all these lots is G, that's a gift, and there's a footnote that says this represents a bona fide gift of the issuer's common stock by the reporting person to charity. So more than 5 million shares, and at the time Tesla was trading above $1,100 a share, so over $5.5 billion here that Elon has donated to charity. And yet criticism remains because this donation will offset adjusted gross income for Elon. That would reduce his tax liability, but again, if that's at a 53% rate like we have talked about, then this might reduce that tax liability by about $2.9 billion. Some people like to harp on that, but you also have to consider what's being given up, and that's $5.5 billion worth of stock. Even if Elon paid long-term capital gains on that stock, it would still come out at $4.2 billion or so. So there's no way Elon actually comes out ahead from actual asset retention here, unless you assume that whatever charity Musk was donating to is ultimately self-serving. And I think your assumption on that will just depend on what you think and perceive about Elon Musk. As far as I know, there's no way for us to know what charity this went to. I would guess the Musk Foundation, which would seem to actually seek to do good from a charitable perspective. But again, that's kind of in the eye of the beholder. Anyway, it will be interesting to see what does come of that capital if it is still under Musk influence at all. Obviously, Elon has talked about the, Texas Institute of Technology and Sciences. Maybe part of this could be a seed for that. Who knows? All right, moving on from one SEC filing to another. I know we got really exciting stuff here today, but the other thing kind of getting some attention today is a famed short seller returning. So David Einhorn is back. Einhorn runs Greenlight Capital Management. They've got right now about $1.7 billion under management. Einhorn has been very vocally short Tesla in the past, much to his demise, but you may remember that he and Elon kind of went back and forth on short shorts on Twitter. Einhorn ended up getting sent a box of short shorts. Turned out that Chubbies had done that rather than Elon Musk himself, but Elon did reply saying that was awesome. That was back in August of 2018 when Tesla was trading for, of course, around $69 per share. And since then, we kind of know what has happened. Not really what you were looking for if you were short. Anyway, Einhorn, I guess, has now decided it is time to return. A new 13F filing from Greenlight Capital Management disclosed a short position on 100,000 shares, but those are short via put options. So this is very, very similar to the situation we talked about with Michael Burry, where the media was reporting on this multi-$100 million short position. Same thing here, the 13F filing, just how they structure it. It lists 100,000 shares. It says those shares are worth $106 million, but that's not actually the value of the position because it is an options position. If you're not super familiar with options, here's a really quick example. You can see that 1,000 options, that would give you the right to 100,000 shares. You could initiate a pretty reasonable position around that for, in this example, $6.5 million. What that actual amount is, that can vary widely. That'll depend heavily on the strike price and the time until expiration. But the point is that just like when we talked about this with Burry, this is likely a much smaller position than what this reporting makes it seem like or how media tends to cover it. $106 million position, that would be about 6% of a $1.6 billion fund versus, in this case, a $6.5 million position would be about 0.4%. Now, options are leveraged, and the degree of leverage depends on, again, strike and expiration, but it's just worth understanding that for cases like this, we don't actually know the size of the bet, but it's probably much, much smaller than what the coverage would suggest. Anyway, with how Tesla's done over the last couple of months, actually probably ended up being a pretty good short for him so far, and who knows if the position is closed. Again, we can't really see anything like that from the filings, but if shorts like Einhorn are jumping back in, I might take that as a bullish sign myself. We'll see. All right, next up, we've got a couple of things on FSD. The first one here, this is coming from the Tesla Motors subreddit moderator, user 110110, who I know has had some inside information in the past. They posted an update and said that, quote, "I've been told by a friend within Tesla, grain of salt, that reverse summon, smart summon but in reverse where the car goes and finds a parking spot for you, was released to engineers for testing, and it is currently quite good. I'm also told it will have multiple modes where you can pick where it parks, including things like closest to the door, near cart returns, or end of the parking lot for ding avoidance," end quote. So this is possibly pretty exciting. We haven't really heard Tesla talk about this feature for a really long time. When I was at AI Day, they were doing FSD beta drives, and I tried to get a little bit of insight on just what the progress was looking like for summon or reverse summon. They didn't share too much with me, but it didn't sound like it was something that they were working on from a dedicated perspective, really just trying to solve the other core functionality of FSD beta first. So I do find this to be a little bit surprising. Doesn't necessarily fit with my perception then, but obviously things could have changed, or maybe this person just had a really good poker face. Whatever the case may be, I would be quite excited to see this feature, but personally I would keep my expectations quite low based on my own personal experience with Summon. I do like testing out FSD beta in the parking lots, but I did have an occasion just, I don't know, a week or two ago where I kind of went up and over a curb, made me nervous for my wheels. They turned out fine, but even if reverse summon was kind of on that stack, which is what I would expect, I'm not sure it's something I would feel quite comfortable with yet, but still, I would definitely love to, play around with it and see. Oh, and on the curb situation, just to clarify, I don't mean I drove straight over a curb, but it just took the turn a little bit too tight. So yeah, one of those situations. Next, just gonna touch on this quickly because I know I'll get questions if not, but CNBC today did put out a video and an article about Tesla's FSD beta. They took test drives with 3 different people, some of which some of you may recognize depending on how closely you follow Tesla Twitter. But anyway, they call this Tesla FSD beta uncensored. I don't know why I didn't think of that for my videos. They're not censored, but obviously they show some problems, and I guess this is even a little bit more censored than a video that I would put out because it's cut up and clipped and all that sort of fun stuff. Anyway, really, I don't have any comments to make on this other than I think most people watching this channel are well aware of where FSD beta is strong, where it's weak, the limitations, and as more and more people get access, it's going to be easier and easier for media coverage like this, so just something to keep an eye out and be aware of. All right, next we've got a very minor VIN update. Drive Tesla Canada first reporting on this, but it looks like for the 2022 model year, Tesla has changed the first 3 digits of the VIN for just the Model X and the Model Y. So for some reason, they went from 5YJ on all vehicles to now be 5YJ on Model S and 3 and 7SA on Model X and Y. The difference in that indicator seems to be passenger car versus MPV, so multi-purpose passenger vehicle. I don't really know why that would be changing now, but just giving people a heads up in case that caused some confusion down the road if we hadn't talked about it. For US vehicles, that won't have anything to do with factory. Between Fremont and Austin, you'd be looking at Digit 11. And if you have an A in Digit 11, that's where that would be the Austin indicator rather than anything with these 3. Next, we've got an update from Teslarati. They have noticed a South Korean report that the Korea Fair Trade Commission is looking into Tesla, launched an investigation over so-called exaggerated range claims. Now, of course, we know that Tesla uses whatever standardized range test there is for the appropriate region. When I navigate to the South Korean design studio, I don't see any label or anything for what test was used to determine the range. So maybe there's no standard there for Korea, not really sure. But Tesla lists the range as 528 kilometers or 328 miles, which is obviously similar to what they list in other markets, which certainly a number like that is achievable, maybe not likely, but definitely achievable in a mixed use type of scenario. Apparently, the Korea Fair Trade Commission was particularly concerned about the range in cold weather, but that's going to affect all electric vehicles, certainly not unique to Tesla, and it affects all vehicles in general. That would just show up in your miles per gallon or kilometers per liter in a gas-powered vehicle. So if anything, they just need to set a standard for how EV ranges are marketed in the entire country, not anything unique to Tesla. Then the other thing that they seemed to take issue with was the 100,000 won order fee, so $83. Here in the US, it's $100. I believe in all markets that's non-refundable because Tesla actually has to start doing work at that point. That work costs money and time, hence that being non-refundable. But I guess the Korea Fair Trade Commission doesn't like that if somebody does then cancel their order. Ultimately, I don't think either of these should be too big of an issue, not too much liability for Tesla, likely fairly easily resolved. All right, next we've got an update on the Chevy Bolt. Obviously, since the recall, GM has halted production on that vehicle. The Q4 updates were kind of saying we wouldn't start production until at least this date. Then we got a target for January. I think they moved that out at one point to February. GM has now announced this morning that they will be restarting production in early April for both the Bolt and the Bolt EUV. So Q1 will be another very, very low quarter of electric vehicle production. It's going to really just be the Hummer. I'm not sure where their production rate is on that, but they only produced one in Q4. So it's not going to be a ton. This will end up being in total about 6 months of downtime for their EV production. It's a pretty decent opportunity cost, as well as obviously the cost of fixing the recall itself. LG, of course, paying a lot of those recall costs. All right, last couple of things here, just some quick SpaceX updates. First, Polaris has announced the Polaris Dawn mission with SpaceX. They say this will launch no earlier than the fourth quarter of this year. This will be a crewed mission that will spend up to 5 days in orbit. One of their objectives is get to the highest Earth orbit ever flown and do the first commercial spacewalk at approximately 500 kilometers above Earth. The crew here does include Jared Isaacman, who was part of the Inspiration 4 mission, as well as a couple of SpaceX employees, and they'll all be joined by Scott Petit, who is a retired U.S. Air Force lieutenant colonel. So something to look forward to there. Always exciting to see those crew missions. And then the other update was from Elon on Twitter, saying that Starlink currently has 250,000 customers. That should be about $125 million of revenue for hardware. Obviously, that's probably negative margin. And then for the subscription service at $99 a month, almost $25 million a month, or $297 million per year. So interesting to keep tabs on that, and Starlink pretty quickly growing into a sizable business. All right, that'll wrap it up for today then. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And we'll see you tomorrow for the Wednesday, February 16th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.